The topic is failure and adversity. And my sense is, if you're here, you're probably going through something. There's probably something that you're struggling with, something that you're worrying about, something that you maybe can't see the end of, something that you are really muddling through. So let's get into it, because I think what I know is most of the time when people talk about failure, they have a really tangible story of something that they tried really hard at and it didn't go well, or something they went through and came out the other side of. And sometimes when we're struggling with something, it can be really great to hear that, because we can hear that there's an end in sight, right? So you might hear people talk about that launch strategy that they implemented for their business and it totally crashed and burned. Maybe it's that time you hired someone and it was really not the best hire, and it, turned out to be quite detrimental to your company. Maybe it's the time that you were really misunderstood in your personal life or even on social media, and there was a bit of backlash that came back at you that you weren't expecting, and you move through that. So we hear people talk about all of these stories, and we've all been through what we kind of call these micro or macro failures with a start and an end. But that sort of failure is really contained, right? You can have a rough couple days, weeks, even months, but as you look back on it, you can see a really clear beginning and a clear end to the experience. At some point, it becomes a story that we can reflect back on and have a really tangible takeaway or lesson learned. And we kind of, I hate to say it, but like that kind of failure in hindsight, because it gives us a really good story. And when our friend's struggling with something, we can say, hey, I went through something similar, and you can share that story with them, or in a situation like this. But what's not often talked about is the less, let's call them sexy failures, right? The days where it feels like you are just constantly pushing a boulder up a hill for it to just roll back down and crush you every day. The lessons that take a really long time to learn, the confusion and lack of clarity that might come with a lack of progress, where you're feeling like you're really pushing and you're really trying and you're like, it's not working, but I can't necessarily say this one thing was a failure. I don't know what it is. It's not just a clear, yes, this happened and now I'm better off. It's exhausting, and it's really hard not to give up, especially if every single day you have the same feeling again and again and again. And what I want to share with you is I've had that. I actually went through that for quite an extended period of time. And, from the outside looking in, it wasn't the kind of thing that everyone would have known or assumed, which I'm going to go ahead and assume might be the case for a lot of you too. We're very good at suiting up and booting up, as we call it, putting on a great front, smiling, always asking how everyone else is doing and avoiding really going there for ourselves. And I think a lot of people kind of thought that of me. They looked outside, from the outside in, this thriving business, beautiful house, so many. Okay, on the outside, everything looks great. And what I want you to realize is that you can have it all. So many of you do, but you can still feel broken on the inside. You can still feel like whatever you're going through is just never ending, and you can be really stuck in that loop. There is no level of success, outward success, that guarantees inner peace. Oh, if I can just get to that next financial milestone, if I could just make that next hire, if I could just take a 2-week vacation. None of that means that you're really free. If you're just waiting for the next thing to fall into place, that's not real freedom. And I understand there can be some shame about externally having it all, but internally not feeling free, internally not feeling great. I understand that, for so many of us, a lot of people would look in and say, well, that's not a problem. That if it feels like a problem to you, it's a problem, because your experience is valid and your experience is your experience. So we're going to overcome that today, and we're going to talk about processes around that, what you can implement. And I'm seeing that so much of this is really resonating, and I think probably why you needed to be here today. So I want to introduce you to my best personal and professional development guru out there, like the best of the best. She taught me everything I know. She changed everything for me. That is my daughter, Noemi. And I remember reading all of these self-help books about giving yourself grace and not feeling the pressure to do it all, to be it all, thinking this is a really great message and I'm going to crack the code. I'm going to figure out how I can do all the things all at once, We're going to crush the business. We're going to be fully present at home. We're going to cook all the healthy foods. My baby will not be eating out of prepackaged foods. Working out, maintain a house that is pristine all the time, win boss of the world, whatever it is, all the things. I even remember telling my team, I don't even know if I'm going to take a maternity leave. I remember being in that place and not making it wrong, but I remember that's what my mindset was, right? How many times do we do this to ourselves? We accept a story of empathy and healing for everyone but ourselves. You've heard to treat others the way you want to be treated, but often we can treat others a lot better than we treat ourselves. And so while I was talking a big game over here, really, it was coming from a place of, I feel like if I'm not doing all these things, I'm a failure. And what's really interesting is any of my friends who have gone through something similar, doesn't necessarily need to be a baby, can be juggling all the things that they're juggling, whether parenthood is involved in that, is irrelevant. They can be juggling all the things and giving themselves a really hard time about not doing it all to perfection and feeling like a failure. And I'm the first person to jump in and say, listen, we don't do guilt over here. Give yourself a break. Look at all the things you're doing. Yet for myself, I just had this narrative going on that if I wasn't doing all the things, then I'd be failing. And I also had this story that if I'm not putting this much pressure on myself, I'll never get the results that I want. I would hear people tell me, Natalie, you need to be kinder to yourself. And I'd hear it, but if I'm going to be totally real with you, on some level, my inner voice was saying, if you be too kind to yourself, if you give yourself too much grace, you won't succeed. You won't get the results you want. You have the results you want because we have that internal dialogue that is pushing, pushing, pushing. You can resonate with that internal dialogue. Probably majority of us because we're all high achievers, right? We are heard, treat others the way you want to be treated. But like I said, we often treat others way better than we treat ourselves. Whether that looks like wearing a million hats so your team at work doesn't have to wear more than one. Whether it's not asking your partner for help because you want to be the super person that's doing it all. Whether it's saying yes to that party you really don't want to go to because you feel the need to show up. All of this stuff, we'd give everyone else the advice of, can you take it easier on yourself? Can you just give yourself a break? Can you just let yourself breathe and be where you're at? And the ugly truth is, you think that you're being kind by saying yes to everyone and everything, but you often end up building a lot of resentment and kind of having strings attached to everything. You're maybe waiting for this award that never comes. You're waiting for this award of Superman, Superwoman, and you never get it. And so you can end up feeling quite bitter and angry at the world. Why me? Why is everything like this? Why am I carrying so much of the weight myself? You can relate to that one. So what do? Well, it all starts with taking responsibility. And that's the least sexy piece of all of that, is taking responsibility.
This can be your day for personal growth. This can be that day you committed to and you remember and you go, that was the day I got myself a community. I got better coaches. I committed to making my life the absolute best that I could. This is that day. Make today your growth day. Click the button on this page and sign up right now.